Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Check one, check two. Here we go. This is it, everybody. Welcome to the Cannabis Coffee Hour with your host, me, Rob Cantrell. Oh man, I have an exciting episode, a cool episode, a special guest, a dear, dear friend of mine. This guy knows me from the beginning of most of my DNA. And he's also a very super funny, talented comedian, lives in New York. We grew up together for some time in Virginia, but he's been on Conan O'Brien several times. He tours, he writes, he plays drums. He does clean comedy. So if you're a booker looking for a clean act, especially, this guy does corporate gigs, sharp as nails, but also cool as hell. Please give it up for Tony Deyo, everybody.
Thanks, buddy. That's the greatest intro I've ever had.
They love you. Thanks for doing this, Home Slice.
This is so much fun.
And thanks for putting up for that cheesy intro.
I would want it no other way.
Yeah, you know, with podcasts, you got to sell it a little bit, man.
Yeah.
You can't go on there sleepy, you know, if you're not, you don't want to cheesy morning radio it.
No, not at all. This is not NPR.
Just say to NPR. I mean, NPR's got some good sound, though. Some of they're good. You've got a great mic. Your sound is sounded good. But yeah, you got to let it pop a little bit.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I got this microphone. I was getting ready to start a podcast right at the beginning of this year. I'm like, let me get some good equipment. I'll be ready. And then the universe had other ideas for us this year.
So now you're just singing acapella gospel music on the weekends instead of to Japan. And,
no, I'm super overpowered for Zoom calls.
But that's a real, like, I almost got that mic because I've been doing some music. And so you're rocking a Shure mic, and that I see a lot of podcasters are doing it, but that's technically like a studio mic.
This is what Michael Jackson recorded Thriller on this mic. I mean, not this one. I don't have mics.
But there's like three standard models of the Shure, and I'm a huge Shure company.
Yeah, this is the SM7B. It's fantastic.
Fantastic. Like you could sing metal on that. You could scream core. You can do all kinds of stuff. And I'm working with what is this called? This is the classic. I just have
that's the Comedy Club Shure 57.
It's the
SM57.
SM57. And what's brilliant about it? It doesn't have any batteries, and it's all but it's all analog, and it's all like, I don't know. It's just I dig the quality.
Yeah, analog's the way to go. Old school, like you and me.
Yeah, 72, man. We've been around the block and then some, but it's not over.
No, we're still killing it.
You're still killing it? Or I don't want to kill it. I want to live it. I want to live it. I'm all about living it. A will to kill. I've been doing all this meditating. A person with a will to kill will never get all the fruits of life.
Yeah, I agree.
But in comedy, it does help to kill.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, like, you're more of a quieter comedian. Like, do you, there is that temperature in stand-up comedy. Like, where do you find your funny energy? Do you find it like when you're like, I've been doing meditation, it's all about being quiet and letting things happen.
Yeah. It's funny when you ask that. I'm trying to think about where I get my energy from, and I think I don't have that much energy for it. Like when I started comedy, my only skill was writing, and like I had no performing chops whatsoever. And I think the only thing that's gotten
band in high school.
I did do marching band. Does that count as performing?
Oh, that's big time performing, big guy. Just to give a little bit of background, I went to middle school and maybe 1 year of high school with Tony Deyo, and we both come from, I was born in Washington, D.C., and I moved to Buena Vista, Virginia in 83. 83. So I was about 9 or 10, and we moved to Buena Vista. It may have been earlier than that. It may have been like 82. That now that I
What
think
grade did you jump in there?
third grade.
Okay,
Third
because I
grade.
moved in first grade
Yeah.
a couple years before that.
And you came, and what we're talking about is a small town called Buena Vista, Virginia, but it's pronounced Buena Vista, Virginia,
Right.
or BV.
Yes.
If you're a local. And let me tell you, this town is legendary in Virginia. It's 4 hours down south from Washington, D.C. When I say 4 hours down south, you know, everything, the South begins after Northern Virginia. That's it. Once you hit Fredericksburg, Virginia, which is where Eastbound and Down dude is from.
Yes.
Yeah. He's from Fredericksburg. I know some Fredericksburg cats. I know that vibe that dude has. Once you hit Fredericksburg, you're going in the South, especially when you start messing with, you know, Central Virginia, and you start getting into where my dad's from is Pound, Virginia, which is down near Abington, which is right at the cusp of Kentucky and Tennessee. Like I don't know if you know this, Tony, but my grandfather was a child working coal miner.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, my grandfather, Fitzhugh Lee Cantrell, my brother's named after him. Was working in coal mines in Wise County, Pound, Virginia, when he was 10 and 11. There's like letters of him like writing like from the mine.
Wow.
Just like, yeah,
that's crazy.
That was some old, like, where like people from New York and the comedy scene really don't understand me or where I come from, but it's more American than just about I come from the original Virginia dudes, but my mom's from Michigan and she's German. So I'm German and redneck, just hardcore.
through and through.
Through and through. And I'm proud of these hillbillies.
Yeah.
These hillbillies, none of these weren't the people that owned slaves. This was the slave owners.
Yeah.
This was the banjo up on the mountain with 12 kids in the holler.
Right.
Running
moonshine.
Making moonshine. My dad, I got these old films of my dad. And my dad died when I was 10, but I got these old films of him in Pound, Virginia, and he's hanging out there was a flood, and it's just like these black and white films. And he picks up a moonshine, like the whole setup, like
still
the sill, because during the flood, all the shiners, all the moonshine dudes, all this rubbish came down, and all it is up in these hills is just dudes. It's like meth, but back in the day, it was moonshine because alcohol was illegal.
I went first time I ever had moonshine was like our 25th or 20th high school reunion.
Oh, nice. Did somebody have the real deal? Did it?
Yeah, it was the real deal. Not that kind you can buy in the liquor store now.
There was some stuff around at the liquor store that would say it was moonshine, but
this was mason jar stuff.
Woo. That stuff will make you go blind. Did you have a full glass, or what did you do with it?
Just a little sip.
Just a sip.
Yeah.
And even that will catch you a buzz.
Yeah.
It's like the espresso of alcohol.
Yeah.
So this is the Cannabis Coffee Hour, and I wanted to lead into this a little bit, Tony. Not that I know you're not a huge cannabis smoker.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. But I will say I've known Tony, like, I just to maybe get some background so we just don't start talking randomly for the listener. Is I knew Tony in this little not redneck, southern town, cool, southern, small, but it was as blue collar as it gets. There was a factory there that wasn't there anymore called the Bluebird bus factory that made buses, and I would say 75% of the town's parents worked there.
Yeah, and Modine was there. Remember Modine?
Modine was there. Yeah. And Modine, what did they did the food that was in the didn't they do the food that was in the remember where you would go to, what is it, where you candy machine and they would have like hamburgers and shit in it?
I think that was a different place. I think Modine did like air conditioning and like some sort of machine like that, because in the guy that cuts my hair has some Modine thing hanging up in the like up against, every time I go get my hair cut, I see it. I'm like, it brings me back to growing up.
Yeah. That air.
Because it looks like it was made like 50 years ago.
I know. I see the Bluebird buses around.
Yep.
A lot
Yeah,
of
you
the
see.
Hasidic neighborhoods here in New York, in Brooklyn, they have their own school buses.
Yeah.
So it'll be these Bluebird buses that I remember from the South, and they have all this like Hasidic Jewish writing on it,
Yeah.
taking kids to school. And the bus looks like from World War, whatever. It looks like an old ass 80s, just a yellow school bus.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that town. I love the South. That's why I love talking with you. So Tony and I didn't see each other. I left this town. I moved back to DC, but I went to boarding school in Lynchburg, Virginia. So I left BV and I haven't really been back, but maybe like 3 times.
Yeah.
But a major part of my childhood, because it was a tough town. And not tough, but it was just like I say, like, we lived in Friday night lights,
Yes.
football,
Yep.
drink at the corner store, Hardee's parking lot, Friday night fights,
Yeah.
Drinking behind the Kroger, all that stuff. Like,
Yeah.
that was that was my early, and you knew all the kids I ran with. And
Oh, yeah.
some of those kids are in prison right now.
There's a possibility.
There was one that did some time, but he's out. He's doing good. I'm proud of him. But as life goes, you just don't know how, that's what I was talking. Did you ever know these kids that lived when we first moved to Buena Vista? My dad worked at Southern Seminary, which is the Southern college. There's a small 2-year college. But what was it? These guys were so funny. I'll think of it. I'm just blanking out on the name here. But he passed away. But he was the funniest, naturally funniest guys I knew. A lot of them are dead now.
Oh, yeah.
Because I look back, I'm like, holy shit, that guy. But now I look back, I'm like, oh shit, I think that guy was bipolar.
Yeah.
I won't go into it, but I think I shouldn't bring up his name because they were family friends, but he was the funniest fucking kid I knew. And it was they moved away after a couple years in Buena Vista, but I always talk to my brother like, God, do you remember this kid? He was so fucking funny. He was like, yeah, that guy was one of the funniest dudes I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, but we knew each other in Buena Vista. And what I say is Tony was very smart. Tony had straight A's. Everybody borrowed Tony's homework. Tony had straight A's. And it was the 80s in this small town. And you were also in the marching band.
Yep.
But everybody loved you. You had a marching, but it was like, I don't know. What do you think about high school? When you look back on your high school years, what do you remember about all that time? I kind of want to dig into it because it's just a forgotten world.
Yeah, it is a little forgotten. And I think, like, I did feel like an outcast or whatever growing up. And, you get good grades, you're the nerd. And I was in marching band. That wasn't helping the image either. Because it's a town where you played football or you weren't cool. You know, that's just the way it was. And
the guys that played football were kings.
Yes.
Literally kings.
Yeah.
And they got the hottest chicks.
Yeah.
They got the hottest. They drove nice cars.
Right. Yeah. Like even, I played tennis, but it didnn't compare at all to the football team.
And state champs, for just to give some background, like Pear McClure is a very small high school, but their football team were the roughest, toughest, hit you so hard. Like these kids were just tough blue collar kids, and they won state champions all through the 70s. I don't know about the 80s and 90s, but there was a string of them just winning, because a lot of these kids in these towns, they played sandlot since they were 5. Like football was everything. Yep. So by the time they got to high school, the whole football team had been playing together since they were like 7 years old. And break people's necks.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you feel a little bit like an outcast, and that kind of like shades your memory of it until I did go back to that like high school reunion and you hang out with these people again and you're like, we're all, we're all the same.
Yeah.
We all went our separate ways and we come back and it's now I have a lot of like nostalgia for it. Even though I felt like it was hard growing up, I have the fondest of memories of all those people. And I love getting back and seeing them. And even the town itself that I didn't appreciate when I was there because I felt like there was no opportunity. Like I remember like I was like playing tennis a lot and I started getting Tennis Magazine. And
that was very preppy for this town. Like people didn't play tennis. They Red Man, dip skull, and fought. And I could sing every Hank Williams song just because I was on that bus. Like I played football with these animals. Like I ran with these dudes. But I was always the weirdo, funny. I don't know. Tony will give you a little bit of my background, but go ahead, Tony. You started playing tennis, and you're right. It wasn't dreamers. Like people weren't going for their dream.
Right. And then like, I started reading Tennis Magazine and like Andre Agassi was getting big then. And I read into his background and he grew up at a tennis academy in Florida. Like his parents moved him there. So I'm like, oh, I'm not going to succeed at tennis. Nobody's going to cart me off to a different state to go to an academy. And I just felt like that town didn't have a lot of opportunity. So growing up, I just was like, I got to get out of here. And then now going back, you realize how beautiful it is. And it's at, the bottom of the mountains and the river. And it's a really like beautiful little town. But as with a lot of things in life, it takes some distance and perspective before you really appreciate it.
And living in Queens for 10 years.
Yeah, Queens will kind of shine up that image.
Yeah. I love Queens and I love New York. And you and I are kind of Southern cats that ended up in New York and actually have wife and kids here and are doing it. So it's kind of a trip. But yeah, I felt the same thing. It kind of felt like a trap, kind of that small town politics.
Yeah.
Everybody peaks out at 21. And it was like, I don't know about you, Tony, but I think I'm glad I'm alive because I think I've just figured shit out.
Right.
Like, how to be a human being and how I should relate and talk to people. Like just even the last 3 years or how to think about things. I've gotten so much better.
Yeah.
So yeah, I felt the same way when I was there. And even the draw, as much as I love the South, and I don't want to badmouth the South because I think the South is laid back and cool, especially being in New York. But there is, I don't know, there's something that can suck you down. I think it's any like local yokel vibe. Like there's something that can suck you down where you just don't spread your wings or, freak out a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, there's got to be people in BV that haven't left the county in the last 30 years. That's just their life there and they don't go anywhere.
Yeah, and there's nothing really wrong about that. The older I get and the more I've been around.
I'm thinking that's a nice way to go.
It's a nice way to go. But, a lot of it's your own perspective and what makes you happy and what's in your heart. In order to complete myself, I just felt like I had to go do something, even with stand-up, it was a calling. It was a calling. I don't know if it may have been my own calling in my brain, but there was a point where I couldn't not do it.
Right.
But being in an environment like Buena Vista, like sometimes I look at these New York kids, I'm not saying, but I'll just say Chris Rock or Giannis Papas, even Eddie Murphy, or Jerry Seinfeld, like you guys just came to New York. Like New York was right fucking here. Like we had to fight rednecks and fucking and bricks thrown at it. No, and take Greyhound buses and sleep on couches.
Yeah.
Look at everybody else's. You can't judge anybody, but I'm just saying there's something about getting out of those small towns. But now that I look back and I look at the videos and I'm like, man, I could easily move back there right now. Yeah. There's a house. I don't want to somebody will grab it if they hear this, but there's a house.
You got your eye on a house.
A coffee pot house. There's a house.
Oh, I know that.
A coffee pot. I
Yeah.
want that house. And it's
Yeah.
right across the Maury River, which bleeds into the James River. This is a town of 5,000 deep, but the biggest city was Roanoke. And that's
Yeah.
where I saw the Fresh Festival. That's where I saw Houdini. And Houdini, when I went
It's
there by
amazing.
myself. Do you know? Did you hear that? I told you that story.
Yeah. Just recently you told me that story, and it was the first time I'd heard that story in my life. I didn't even know that story when we were kids.
Oh yeah, and I forget the kid. Some of these names, but his dad worked for that painting store, Phillips Paints, and
Yeah.
they lived right next. You know where the opening was to Perry McClure, where you go into the playground.
Yeah.
What's that street right there?
That's Forrest.
Forest Street. They lived
Yeah.
on the left-hand side. He was a dude that was older than me, and he used to break dance. And we got tickets to the Fresh Festival, and his parents wouldn't let him go. So my mom drove me, and I went to the Fresh Festival, and the lineup was the Fat Boys, Run DMC, and Houdini. And I went to Roanoke, Virginia, Starcade Arena. My mom dropped me off, and I went and saw this legendary, the first hip hop big tour to ever hit America, and especially the South. Like the
Yeah.
first time they did arenas. Like the guy who's the super producer was like a backup dancer for it. This guy, I don't know if you know, he was JD. I'm blanking out. I had a little bit of weed in the shower today, so I smoked a little bit of herb. But then I started watching Buena Vista videos and getting into that, and then
That's fun.
but yeah, I'll look up this one, the backup dancer. I don't know if you know him, but he was the backup dancer for he was my age, and he was backup dancing for Houdini.
No way.
And this guy ended up being one of the biggest producers in Atlanta in hip hop music. He produced the Brat, JDL, yeah, JD. I forget his fucking full name. It's not, but he produced the Brat, and he produced Little Bow Wow, like any of the Atlanta stuff. Like he came from that tour, which is a big deal. But yeah, so that was like my first concert there. And then
how old were you for that?
Dude, I must have been. So the next year I did go with Alan Mays.
Oh yeah.
Tony, who's the guy with the frizzy hair that was my buddy? Big football player, our grade, ended up being Roanoke, I think in finance. Alan Mays.
When Jeff?
Oh
yeah, Jeff Floyd.
So it's Alan Mays, Jeff Floyd, and I went and saw the Raising Hell tour in Richmond. The next 2 years.
Yeah.
86. I saw that tour. It was 84, 85. Then 86, I saw it was LL Cool J with Jeff Floyd and Alan Mays. It was LL Cool J, Run DMC, and Houdini again, but not on the bill, but an unannounced opening act were these three guys called the Beastie Boys.
Wow.
Yeah, we went and saw the Raising Hell tour. That was right before, like, the Raising Hell tour was a big album. And that was right when Run DMC started bubbling, but Beasties hadn't bubbled. But
yeah,
Run DMC was out there for breakdancers and people that liked hip hop. But yeah, I saw that, like, the lights went down, and then these three, and I was like 13, and these three 17-year-old dudes come out. White dudes, and just rip it. They kill. They do 3 songs. They do Hold It Now, Hit It, Slow and Low, and like Brass Monkey. They just do 3 songs, and they literally just, and the stadium was Richmond, and this was the Raising Hell tour, so it was like 75% black, and they just killed, man. It was just a great concert. But you were into music. You were a drummer, and you actually produced marching drumming music. Tell me about your music background, Tony.
All right, so I graduate from Perry McClure. I went to Madison in Harrisonburg.
It's a really good college, about 2 hours away from Buena Vista.
Yeah, and I went there. It's funny, I got into UVA, but I wanted to be in the marching band, so I went to JMU. And our guidance counselor was very upset about that decision. She's like, you got into UVA. Why would you not go there? I'm like, they don't have a marching band. So that's like when you're young and maybe not making the greatest decisions for life beyond that moment. But I'm completely happy with how life turned out.
You met your wife at JMU, right?
Yep, I met my wife in the marching band, and
Awesome.
I got a music education degree, and then I went out to University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and got a performance degree, like percussion performance degree. And then I moved to Texas and started teaching band down there outside of Corpus Christi, and I taught in Austin for a little while. But somewhere in college, I started like choreographing marching band shows and kind of designing the movement for how they move around on a football field. And I've done that since then. It was sort of the reason I was able to become a comedian, is because I was able to make a living writing band shows, 3 months out of the year, and I got to do comedy for 9 months a year and not have to worry about was I going to be able to pay my bills or not.
Yeah, there's always the beginning side gigs, and when you live in New York as an artist or independent, it's good to have a couple.
Oh yeah, yeah, you can't have too many.
It's good to have a couple side hustles when the main hustle goes down.
Yeah.
And that's just something I've learned from the New York hustle. It's like everybody's got like 3 or 4 jobs here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that came in handy. But wow, but I just want to talk to the listener a little bit. Yeah, choosing JMU is a great school.
Yeah.
But UVA, to get into UVA is really fucking hard. Like, I almost would choose UVA over Harvard. Like, it's literally like one of the most beautiful campus out there. Like, if you wanted to go to like what you picture like college is, it's literally Charlottesville, Virginia.
Yeah, that's what a college looks like.
That is like a beautiful, sprawling, long, young girls, people playing guitars, history, smart people, exchanging ideas, and then all of a sudden Trump comes in and we got some neo-Nazis. That's what bums me out about the South, man, is like the Trump shit fucking. And then the march on Charlottesville, like, people don't understand. Charlottesville's like the chillest town in Virginia.
Yeah.
And Virginia is chill. I'm just gonna say this from the get-go. I've been around this planet for a long time, and I've hung out with some of the coolest of the cool, but there's nothing cooler than a Southern dude.
Yeah.
A Southern dude that isn't racist, that is the coolest dude ever. Because they're laid back, they stay in the cut, they're musical, they're not highfalutin, they like good food, they like good music. But the only thing when you start fucking with the South is when you start fucking with some ignorance, man, and some of the fucking local yokel bullshit that is fucking this country up and getting QAnon drops, and I don't even know what these fucking crazy dudes are doing now these days, man.
Yeah.
I don't want to go into politics. I don't want to drag you into that a little bit, but I just want to stand up for the South. And a lot of it's the Cannabis Coffee Hour. I do think. Do you think cannabis should be legal in America?
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
It should be legal. And a little thing is something I always strive for. And I don't think pot should be for people under 18 or under 21. I think it's more important for the environment, going towards making plastics with cannabis, which you can do, paper products with. It's more of an environmental thing as I see it.
Yeah.
And the thing that the South got with the Civil War, all the money got cut out because they were having free labor because of fucking slavery, which is awful and terrible. But when the Civil War happened, it kind of cut the economy out. Right. So it cut the economy out. So everybody in the South has less money than everybody else that had a jump on the economy. And the reason I always say is tobacco. Virginia was tobacco.
Yeah.
Virginia made money growing tobacco.
Yeah.
If you fucking rednecks will get your shit together, listen to me, Virginia. You fucking rednecks get your shit together and legalize pot. You could literally grow the best cannabis in the world. Like, it's literally the Blue Ridge Mountains. Kentucky already has some of that in it.
Yeah.
As we just grow towards legalization, that's why I stand up for Virginia. And I do think economically it could be a sound and wise move if they move towards that.
Oh, for sure.
That's all. That was my, because I just do know the South and I do know some of the old ways of it and what's dragging it behind. But I don't think drugs are the best thing. And I think we're just learning about mental illness and how powerful the mind is. But as we go forward in life, that is maybe, an angle, especially in terms environmentally, in terms of mental health and health altogether, it could help out.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense, or was that
definitely no? That's good. I like it.
I just it's all farmers down there anywhere, and it's all this land, and they're not doing anything with it, and everybody's not really making.
I haven't even checked. Like, is it something they're even going to vote on down there at any point?
It's getting close, but it's like, as we know, Northern Virginia is kind of your liberal hotbed,
right?
And then you get into
enclave.
Richmond, which is odd, but I have a nephew going to VCU. He loves it. He wanted to go to NYU. I have a nephew already doing stand-up. He's like,
get out.
Yeah. He's going to
take
revenge. He's going to take revenge on the comedy industry for me. The seller wouldn't give me spots in 2003, right after I got off Last Comic Standing. I'm bringing my young nephew that's been doing stand-up since he was 13 in Virginia. He's going to destroy the whole industry. No, he's cool. He's a great kid. But Richmond is it kind of has a cool hipster, and it kind of has a cool artist scene. Richmond always had kind of a cool art scene.
Yep.
So I said, when you're starting out, you just want a healthy, good, a place where creative people feel comfortable.
Yeah. And
Richmond seems to be that, but Richmond also has like a weird conservative side to it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a balance.
Yeah.
What was the high school reunion like when you went back?
That was great, man. I don't know. I think it must have been, let's see, 2011, maybe? Yeah, I guess that would have been it. That must mean we're coming up on 30 this year.
Didn't they had it at the American Legion? There's American Legion in town?
We did it actually over in Lexington. There was...
Now, Lexington is the preppy town next door. And I knew kids from Lexington. And it is that's where the college William and Mary is, and the college VMI, which is the Virginia Military Institute.
Not William and Mary, Washington Lee.
Washington Lee.
Yep. Yeah, they had that. And I can't even remember where we had it, but it was over in Lexington somewhere. And it was a blast, man. I loved seeing everyone.
Everybody's laid back and nice.
Yeah, it was great. And that was because I guess that 20th one was the first time I'd really seen almost anyone since high school. And that is where you're like, oh yeah, we're all people. We all grew up, there's no reason to hang on to any grudges or, that dude was mean to me or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a great time.
Oh, that's awesome. And have you, and then you moved to, do you remember, not about me, but you hit me up and I hadn't seen or heard of you since the 9th grade.
Yeah.
I was on Last Comic Standing.
Yeah. I had just started doing comedy. Mm-hmm. And then that first season of Last Comic came on and I'm like, is that the dude I went to middle school with? I had no idea. And this was a time too where it wasn't so easy. Like there wasn't Facebook,
No.
So it took me a minute to kind of find an email address for you.
I had a little website. Yeah, that was 2003. I just like to, I'm trying not to pat myself back on the back or humble myself, but I have to lay out my history in comedy, or if I don't do it, it's not out there. Right. But in 2003, it was literally the #1 television show on whatever night it was. It got monster rated, huge, and they played it on Comedy Central too. So they played it on NBC. It was one of the biggest breaks you could think of. It was almost laughable how funny and how big it went.
Yeah.
because I came from San Francisco. I didn't have an agent. I didn't have a manager. As you know, I wasn't a theater kid. I was just a straight up breakdancing goofball and then hung out with the dudes in the back of the class. But so you hit me up via email.
Yeah.
Like, Tony Deyo, yeah. And then I thought you were somebody else. But then I was like, oh, Tony Deyo always had a marching band jacket. And he always had this rad ass marching band jacket. But he also, the school was not that diverse. So there was no Asian kids in our school, but there was Tony. Tony got straight A's. Tony got A's in math. You got A's in history. You couldn't stop his grades. I can't believe you turned down UVA. UVA is a beautiful fucking school, dude.
I know.
Dude, I know dudes from Northern Virginia. You know how hard it is to get to UVA if you're in Northern Virginia?
Yeah.
Like, it's harder than Harvard because there's so many schools up there and they only take so many people from Virginia. So you were in a county that you were the top guy. So you had the choice of the state.
Yeah.
But JMU is more modern and it's for music, like you said, like.
Yeah, it was a better music school for sure.
Better music. I went to wrestling camp at JMU. I did wrestling. If anybody knows, I wrestled since I was in the 3rd grade. The Sherlocks. I don't know if you knew Cameron Sherlock.
Yeah, Cam.
Those guys. So the head wrestling coach of Virginia Military School. You're not talking like beyond tough guy Trump dudes. Like this is like the top wrestlers that coached at the military college. These guys are tough motherfuckers. So I would go to wrestling camps with Cameron.
Wow.
When we were in the 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. So I was never, as you know, I was never alpha male, whatever dude, but I could wrestle.
Yeah.
And I grew up in DC. So I grew up, a little bit tougher than not tougher, but I've been around the block a little bit.
Yeah. And I think that helps a lot. Like that's what I think is even great about raising my son here in New York City is like, there's going to be a time in his life where nothing gets by him. Like you're not going to be able to outthink him. Like he's a New York kid, Yeah,
they just know subways. They know homeless people. They know yelling. They know screaming. There's chaos. There's as soon as you walk out the door, that's the thing about. I got a car, Tony, during this thing, and I've never had a car. Like I haven't had a car in like 15 years.
Oh, no
one
kidding.
thing I like it, but there's no chill. There's no chill driving. It's always on. And when you go outside in New York, it's always on. So it's like you can't be a Jamocan and get by here. You just it's just not, you're gonna lose out. I've seen, and I got kicked out of this town. I tried to move here twice before I finally settled.
Oh, really?
Yeah, right before Last Comic Standing, I moved out of San Francisco. And I got a ride with a girl that sometimes stripped. And we went to Las Vegas and we saw a Fish concert. And I stayed with my friend, Adam Jones. But this girl was also artistic. I didn't hook up with her. She was also like, she dealt ecstasy and painted and stripped on the side. Like she was
a couple of side hustles.
She had a bunch of side hustles. But her main thing was like, she was a super hippie chick, awesome chick, one of the coolest chicks. And she ended up dating my friend. But I stayed there. And then I took a train from Las Vegas to Buffalo, New York. And I had a friend from college that was redoing houses there. And I did manual labor with no fucking insurance for 2 months and made like $3,000 in Buffalo during the winter.
Oh,
I was literally just deconstructing hammers, tearing up old houses in the project, stacking wood. No insurance, paid under the table, old friend from college, just like, okay, I got you for 2 months. And then from Buffalo, I went to New York and I got to go to the Lower East Side. I went to Surf Reality. I saw Brody Stevens at Surf Reality. I saw the Lower East Side when it was really the Lower East Side. And Surf Reality was like it was the Creek in the Cave before the Creek in the Cave, but it was in the middle of the Lower East Side. When the Lower East Side was literally Andy Warhol and then a bunch of dudes shooting heroin.
Right.
In a couple punk bands and Gigi Allen on the corner.
Yeah.
And but I remember going down and I remember being scared walking down these streets, and it was before smartphones and shit, and I would have to get the map.
Oh yeah, that's the worst when you got to pull out a map.
got to pull out a map, and all the lights are down. The show started at 11:30 and went to 5 o'clock in the morning, and I would get on at 5. But it was cool about it. But coming from BV, this all blew my mind. Like it was like it was like universes exploding in my brain in front of me, and I could smoke pot at Surf Reality. So you would wait on these things and wait for your spot at 3 o'clock. So I just sit there and smoke one hitters and drink tall boys and go over my notes. And nobody knew me because I was just coming in from town and crashing on. But that was my first time. I hung in for about 2 months and I couldn't make it happen. And I went back to San Francisco, which ended up being the best thing. So another year of San Francisco. I was living in a hostel. I was doing shows. I was opening for Mitch at the punchlines, and I was just working. I was so focused. I had no life but stand up, and that's when I got Last Comic Standing the first time. The very first season that show ever got on air. So you saw me, and you're like, I think I know. I think I remember getting the email from you because right after Last Comic Standing, not to brag, but I was getting like 500 emails a day. Like it was before social media. So all that was like, I was on NBC and I was on Comedy Central. Yeah. Stand-up hasn't really, there was no big Netflix deal. Stand-up was just crawling out of the dark ages of the 90s. Yep. And I caught that first big fucking wave, and right behind me was Amy Schumer and everybody else. But I caught that wave when nobody was on that wave. And it was a lot of fun. But then you reached out and we ended up, I got you some opening work.
Yeah. We worked together in Baltimore. You and me and Ryan Connor.
Shout out to Ryan Connor, who I have to have on the podcast. Another kid from Northern Virginia, super funny, great writer, but also a nice, decent person. Yeah. Which you don't find in comedy that much. It's hard to find sometimes.
He told me he was actually driving through BV a few months ago or something with his girlfriend. And he's like, I actually know 2 comedians that came from this town. She's like, what?
There's only one Hardee's. Dude, I just watched the video and I try to tell my kid, do you remember that? Okay, behind the R, there's the Hardee's right at the corner. Yep. But then there's a gas station that's across from that motel. And that gas station right before you go out to town by the market. And that gas station had the first Pac-Man machine. And I remember that Pac-Man machine. And I went from Southern Sim. I remember not having quarters and driving my bike down to that gas station just to hang out and watch people play Pac-Man. That was my fucking child, and nobody watched me. I didn't tell my mom where I was going. I got on a fucking bike with no pads. I probably had OP shorts, no underwear, and I went down there and I hung out in the gas station and watched people play video games. Yeah. And
it's definitely like one of those towns you could grow up in where you didn't have to worry about your kid going out on his bike and whatever. You know.
I talked to my older brother, Fitzy, as you know. Fitz graduated high school from there, and so did my sister. So those guys had more of a high school experience there. Yeah. But yeah, it was we were talking about the pool. So they had this public pool that's at this park called Glen Murray Park, and the pool on top of the hill. Yep. And we would literally on a Monday. Nobody went to summer camp. Every here goes to summer camp. We just went to the pool.
Right.
Went to the pool, and I would ride my bike. And Fitz remembers, like we would stay there all day, and we didn't have phones or anything to call our parents. We remember just bumming rides from friends. Right. Some people we knew, some people we didn't. Like, yo, the pool's cool and we're stuck up here. Can you give us a ride? Like, we get in the back of a truck and just go home. Yes. And nobody cared. And I would ride my bike up there. I remember there's a hill, and I just remember going down. And the town is around all these Blue Ridge Mountains, and the mountains don't look like Colorado mountains, but they are big and green. Yeah. And they're right there. Like you could literally go up in the mountains. Like we had BB war fights up there. Yeah. I drove dirt bikes, like 150. I broke my leg on Chestnut. That's right. You remember that?
I do remember that.
I just got to be honest about my my stuff here. the first time my mom left town, my dad had died. So, you know, there was a lot of energy going on, but I invited 4 friends over, and one of them, I don't think it was like Alan Mays, Jeff Floyd. Then the one kid's mom, Brian, no, the one kid's mom owned the clothing store in town. It was like, but he had a 120 motocross bike. He just got it for Christmas. So he drove his motorcycle down. Illegal motorcycle with no, there was no license or anything.
Right.
It's like one of those
No
dirt bikes.
plates.
He would take it up in the, I would ride on his bike and he would literally do motocross all around this mountain.
Wow.
But he came to our house and I had a VCR, and this is truly what I did like the first time I drank. Okay. I invited everybody over. It was 4 dudes. We watched pornos. We smoked Switzer sweet cigars. And we drank tequila. And then I jumped on the kid's motorcycle.
No.
Yes. And I ran it right into the tree that was 50 feet in front of me. And I broke my leg in 2 places. My fibula and my tibula both were pointing at me. Do you remember? I had a cast up to here.
Yeah, it was a huge cast.
Huge cast. And my brother was playing basketball. Nobody was home. And so they couldn't give me painkillers for like 24 hours because my mom was in DC.
Oh, God.
It just got worse and worse.
Did you have a helmet on?
I don't think so.
It doesn't seem like you would have.
Bad. We were bad. If you know the song Dirty White Boy by Foreigner, Dirty White Boy. You know, I was dipping Skull when I was in the 4th and 5th grade. Like, I look at these guys that act like all Southern Redneck Tour or Kid Rock. I'm like, dude, you don't even know. I dipped Gold River. They build you up. The tobacco industry builds you up. Gold River, which is candy. It doesn't even taste like anything. You buy that at the store. First, you get Gold River. Then you get Hawken. And then you get Skull. Then you get Skull Long Haul. And then once you graduate, Copenhagen.
Yes,
Copenhagen. Which is pure ground cocaine, literally, that you would put in your lip. I remember dipping for the first time and literally turning green. Remember? No, I turned green. Like, I would look green. And then, but it was cool in this town. Am I wrong, Tony? About Skull and tobacco in the 80s in Southern small towns. Like in our school, I remember radiators just smelling like tobacco spit, like in the back, right? Because there's in the shop class, you were allowed to dip. And then there was a couple of the football coaches that you could dip, and they would let the football players, nobody would call them, everybody just dip. Everybody, tobacco just fucking ran. Like just nasty ass tobacco juice just was in all the radiators. You would go back there.
I forgot about all that.
Yeah, Tony Lipscomb. Who's the Lipscomb kid? There was these Lipscomb kids there. I know all those families around there. So I can't wait to go back. I want to go back. I want to buy that coffee house thing. I want to open a dispensary in Buena Vista, Virginia. That sells coffee and weed, and get a band.
Do you remember? Did you ever go canoeing? Because that coffee house place used to be a canoe rental shop, and they had a tunnel underneath the highway so that you could take the canoes right through the tunnel and into the river.
Oh shit, man! That's I called about that piece of real estate. They quoted me a number, but it's down there.
Yeah.
No, man, I need to make a move. I need to get a movie deal, and then I need to buy that coffee pot, and then I'm just gonna start podcasting from that coffee pot down there.
So,
but I've been on that river. That actually is a beautiful place to picnic. I remember picnicking there. You could fish. I remember fishing down there. I remember getting a big fat bag of Utz and getting a watermelon. You get some Utz chips. You get a watermelon, and everybody drank Dr. Pepper in this town. Everybody drank Dr. Pepper, and they would get Dr. Pepper in the glass bottles, and they would literally, it would be like milk. People would have like cases of glass bottles of Dr. Pepper, like milk. Am I wrong, Tony? I mean,
no, you're exactly right.
I remember going to my friends just drinking like Dr. Pepper in the morning and shit. Now they all have diabetes, but it's just
it was a good time.
It was a good time. It tasted good as hell, man. Dr. Pepper, you have a Dr. Pepper at the right time. It really works out.
Yeah. That was so much fun.
I'll let you go, Tony. We're getting towards the hour. Is there anything I just wanted to like talk about our past and just let people know kind of where I come from. And you're the only person in the comedy industry that knows.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Knows. What was I like back then? Just let the viewers let people know just like where so they understand me better.
Like, I think you have a pretty good bead on at least my image of your time in BV. Like, I remember the first time I met you, we had like a middle school orientation, and at the end of it, like somehow you ended up breakdancing for everyone. I was like, who is this kid? Where did he come from? And
I was core into breakdancing was everything for me. Like everybody played football, but I would literally breakdance in the basement, and I was good. I could pop it. I wasn't the best, but I was good.
Yeah, and I do remember like you being a funny kid, but you were still on the football team. I'm like, that kid's got it figured out. Like he gets to be himself, but he's still not gonna get thrown in a trash can because he's not on the football team.
Yeah, all those guys. I made the football team laugh. Like I would make those guys laugh on the football team, and I wrestled, but I was also artistic and weird, and I wanted to get out of town, and I remember just feeling a little bit like an outcast.
Yeah.
It was kind of racism. People would call me wigger or gay because I would break and pop. Yeah. They would just do that. Oh, he's just trying to be black. Like they would just, a lot of people would blow me off or think it was weird. But I would, comedy got me through. And I'm just saying wrestling and DC, I just wasn't a lot of people think I'm kind of a pretty boy pushover, but it's like, I don't know if you've heard, like, there's all this stuff with Jay Moore and Bert Kreischer and how Bert got slapped by Jay Moore or something. It's going out on this podcast, but I toured with both those guys.
Like recently this happened?
No, this was like in 2003. I toured with these guys.
Yeah. Right
when Last Comic, and now it's all coming out on these podcasts. And I'm trying to get Bert to go on and talk about it, but I haven't. Yeah. I don't want to shake anybody's thing. Right. But I remember these dudes Jay Moore was trying to intimidate me, and I'm like, you don't fucking know. I was like, he was trying to play Hollywood tough guy, and I'm like, dude, I come from Northeast DC in the 70s, and then the most hardcore redneck town in the South. Like, I'm gonna see. I know what you're trying to do. I've hung out with the roughest, meanest bullies there are. Like,
you can't bully me worse than I got it in high school.
You're not gonna bully me worse than I got it in high school or in Southeast DC in the 70s. Like, I got rocks literally thrown at my head. Like, like people wanted to kill me. And I ran. But Tony, the other one thing I just wanted to bring it up. I got paddled in middle school at public school. Do you remember?
Yeah.
I got paddled. A grown man brought me in at a public school, brought me into an office, and he was the football coach and had a paddle on the wall and literally took the paddle, told me to grab my testicles. That's what he said. Grab your groin. So I got in this little scuffle, got in this fight with this kid. Like, there was rough redneck kids.
Yeah.
That would fuck with you. But I was also a spaz, so who knows what I was doing. I was probably breakdancing or spitting on somebody. So I got in a fight with somebody. And you can't get in the fight. And I wasn't into fights, but it happened. And they were like, you can either take 3 licks or 3 days. They literally said that 3 licks, which was a 3 hit with a thick wooden paddle by a varsity middle-aged high school
grown man.
And I was in the 7th grade because it was the middle school part. And whap, like beat the shit out of my ass. Like I was crying. They would do it hard enough if you were crying because we were like tough kids. So they had to make us hurt, or if it didn't hurt, we would just laugh it off.
Right.
So they would make it hurt, and I would just remember being like, crying, like it hurt so bad, like it really. I'm thinking about the sting, and it was like that sting, Like in college, we did that, like when we were drunk in the hallway or, you know, some goofy wrestling shit. But no, this was like, I remember the stick, just like, just
Yeah.
like, and it wasn't like when somebody hits, it was like that next level of pain where you're like,
Right.
oh.
Isn't that insane to think about, though? Like
Yeah.
in our lifetime, a teacher could
Teacher that
beat
was
you
paid by the
at
government
school. Yes.
at school, and because it was the South, man. I'm not dissing it. But my dad's, you know, I don't have any, I'll never sue or bring it up. And I wasn't traumatized. If anything, it kind of straightened me out. But
Right.
it does just make me think about how times have changed and just like
Yeah.
small town politics and how things are just, but I like how things are, I mean, as much as the media and stuff, but it's kind of cool that you and I can Zoom during a pandemic and
Yeah.
talk about old times.
Yeah. It's pretty great.
Tony, is there anything you want to plug? I hope I didn't talk over you or.
Not at all, man. This has been so much fun. I've got very little to plug because I've done very little.
Great albums. No, don't say that. You got 2 great albums on Spotify. I was just checking them out. Like
Oh, nice.
he has 2 great albums stand up on Spotify. But go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, I am proud of those albums. They were both like concept albums, which I think the next one's got to be a normal one. But I did one called Comedy Road Trip, where each track was recorded at a different club or theater, or there's a coffee shop on there. Because like the idea was like, you know, one album and one night. That's not what our life is as comedians. It's a different room every night and whatever. So I wanted the album to be that. So that's what I did. And the next one, my last one that came out last year was called Secret Headliner. And it was at a show where the audience just came in and they didn't promote who it was going to be. And I thought that's a really good way to figure out if the jokes are good enough or not, is to go and have an audience that has no idea who you are.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And that's kind of you. Both of them are the life of a real stand-up comic, and that's what I say about you, Tony. Is like you really are not doing it for the super fame, and I think you're the same way as I am. It was just something that a craft that you loved, and it was a way to express yourself that was cool. And I know you love Seinfeld and just the way he carries his life, and meaning not getting a job, being able to tell jokes for a living, which is one of the coolest things ever. Don't ever.
To be able to succeed at this and make a living at it. You know, we beat the odds.
We beat the odds. Where we come from, you know, a lot of those guys. Richie Seacrest. Do you know Richie Seacrest?
Yeah. Well, I roomed with Brent, who is probably his cousin, maybe.
Yeah, I loved Richie Seacrest.
Yeah, I went to college with Brent, and we were freshman year roommates.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I kind of remember Brent.
Yeah.
And he was cool, but Richard Seacrest was the coolest kid in town. Like he was the older kid. He dated my sister, and he had a great Jeep, and he would pump Egyptian Lover, which is this old fucking hip hop that I love. And he would break dance too, and he was like 17. But we used to drive up in the mountains because I was like 13, but this isn't going to get creepy, but I just remember it was just like, we used to drink wine coolers and drive around the mountains in his Jeep. It wasn't like a big buzz, but it was just like some 80s but the guy, he ended up passing away, I think, from drunk driving.
Oh, man.
I don't know. I don't want to, Brent, I love you. I just want to say, I remember Richie Seacrest. I remember BV. I remember Dinky Mountain. I remember the Fighting Blues. I remember Tony Deyo. And I just want to give love to everybody in the South and Virginia, just where I'm from, where my dad's buried. Not that, you know, and now we're here in New York doing this.
Yeah.
You toured with Chevy Chase. Can you give us, so Tony Deyo got to open for Chevy Chase for a year, which is huge. Like, he's an icon. It's like when I traveled with Tracy Morgan, that was a big deal. It's just, there's some of these guys that are the last of the Mohicans that you see a little bit of the old show business, and they really are those dudes.
Yeah. When you, like that was when I got the email about working with Chevy. I read it wrong the first time. I'm like, oh, there's a gig in Chevy Chase, Maryland that they want me to do, and they're like, no, this is Chevy Chase, and
Wow.
it was unreal, man. Because like every movie we watched in high school,
Fletch was so big.
yeah,
Fletch was like him and Bill Murray were like the coolest male figures for
yep,
us.
yeah,
And there was a
Caddyshack and
time,
Fletch and
Caddyshack and Fletch, it was either
Vacation.
him or Bill Murray, but there was a time where Chevy was fucking king. Like he just
Yeah, you couldn't have gotten
couldn't go
bigger.
wrong.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he was the nicest guy. He like it was one of those things like you hear don't meet your idols because they're gonna let you down. It wasn't that way at all. He was so nice. He was uh, beyond kind, and we had such an like just a great time. you know,
Awesome, man.
yeah,
He's in. I love. There's a lot of stuff big, good and bad about Chevy, but what I've pulled from him was he was a New York kid.
yeah,
He's not a sucker. Like I think he's one of those guys that people think they could push him around when he was younger.
yeah,
He was a New York City kid. Like he grew up in this crazy madness. So he just, especially back then, like people would try to take your money no matter who you are. And everybody's, it's just like when I hang with Tracy Morgan and they just grew up in all of this and just so much ambition and hustle and
yeah,
personalities, you start to see through those guys. There's something to be said about people that grow up in New York that they just, there's a strength and there's you see through a lot of bullshit.
yeah. Yeah, I had heard the stories about Chevy too, and I spent a decent amount of time with him, and I saw none of it. So
Yeah,
at least with me, he couldn't have been nicer.
he's good to you.
Yeah,
Did he tell you any, did he bring up any Belushi stories or any no, he didn't like Belushi, so he's not gonna.
yeah. I sort of avoided asking him about anything that I thought would, because when you're with your hero, you just want it to be a good time.
Yeah, you just want to be at a good time. You don't want to shake, especially when you're working, there's a check on the line. You
Yeah,
want to just do the gig as professional. There's something to be said about being as professional as possible.
yeah.
You don't want
Being
to
easy to get along
up
with.
there in age, so you don't you don't know.
Yeah, yeah. It was a great time, and yeah, hopefully we get to do it again after this is all over.
Oh, I hope so. I hope so. Yeah. And I hope you and we got to hang out and have lunch. I'll wrap it up here, Tony. You've been too good to be doing this. And thank you for
Oh
coming
no,
on the Cannabis Coffee Hour. I
yeah,
know you don't drink coffee. You said you got,
no, I
I
do.
remember you do now. I remember you said you had some wrist issue for drumming and you had to back off
Yeah,
caffeine. Do you remember this?
I do. You know what? I'd forgotten it until you mentioned it. But I had, yeah, I was having some wrist issues when I was playing with the symphony down in Texas, and I was about to get surgery on my wrist. And one of the other drummers said, "Hey, before you do that, try this thing." He's like, "Do you drink a lot of coffee?" I'm like, "I I was drinking a decent amount at the time." He's like, "Just give up the coffee for 3 weeks and let me know." And the wrist issue went away completely.
Wow.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that. I don't know how you remember that.
I remember I do have a good detailed map and I just life is wild and I try to live in the now and meditation and everything, but I do like the time capsules that I have in my brain that I can tap into. And
Yeah,
I just remember how nice of a kid you were back in the 80s and you were smart and you always did the right thing and you were kind and cool and creative. And I love you, Tony. Thank you for being a friend. Thank you for being on this podcast.
hey, I love you too, pal.
Thanks. I hear that. You've been there for me. Tony helped me edit a film right after Last Comic Standing. I toured with Jay Moore and Bert, and then Jay and I kind of fell out, and then I toured with Mitch Hedberg, and then he died. So it was like I went on a fucking. There was some crazy years there.
Yeah,
That I saw the ups and downs of show business, but I'm just glad. I can't wait till this is all over and you and I can hang and hopefully do more podcasts. I want to have you back on the Cannabis
yeah,
Coffee Hour. I hope you come back on, buddy.
of course, anytime.
We'll have you on the drums. Can you have you been doing some music? Have you been playing some drums?
I I don't have my drums here in New York, but there's a place here in Astoria where you can go and just rent them by the hour. So I can go play, and I take Carson over there to play, and it's fun.
Yeah, I have one here that's a rehearsal space. I've been going down there with my Scarlett and been doing some rap tracks. So I just go into the room and I've been making beats just so I can wig out. Because if I do it here at house, I shake the whole apartment building and I start screaming raps. But it's funny because it's like all death metal around me. So it's all like these
right.
playing all this death metal. I'm in and hopping one. So my recordings had all this bleed through, but I gotta get the space when the death metal isn't there.
Yeah, you have to ask specifically when you rent the room. I'm like, can you make sure Death to All isn't rehearsing next to me?
Yeah, Napalm Death isn't right next door, man.
All right.
All right, Big Tone. I appreciate it, man. Everybody check out Tony Deyo. He's the man. And one love. All right, Tony. That's it.
Take care, buddy.
Take care.